Relish, pleasing or zestful flavor.
A quantity just sufficient to flavor, to be pleased or gratified by, enjoy.
We are hoping that what we bring to your table today might add some spice to your life.
Welcome to another episode of Relish. I'm here with Don Patterson. I'm Rowan Miller, and yeah.
Must have been something I had for breakfast. I'm in that giddy kind of mood.
Oh boy. We were like that last time too, weren't
Yeah,
we?
I'm afraid so. It must be the biscuits and gravy. Yeah.
How was your Easter?
It was good. It was good. It was busy.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was a good
Yep.
time to be together. And now we're getting into May and graduations and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Got a busy month coming up.
I do. We do.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll jump right into it. Today we got some Old Testament stories, a little confusing stories, like why would they happen?
Yeah.
Some questions might be kind of,
Sort of like your Nabal one last one and
Yeah,
old
yeah.
prophet, new prophet.
yeah.
Wow.
Some of these,
And I'm not
Might
quite
be-
as good in the Old Testament as I am the New Testament. I just don't
Yeah.
know it quite as well as I do the New. So, and
Well, that
you know, the
makes sense.
surprise factor on this is I come into this cold. I don't know what Rowan's going to ask me ahead of time.
Yep.
And I haven't got any preparation ahead of time. So let's see how close and very close last time you got to
Yeah.
stumping Don.
yeah. We try to make it as difficult as possible for him, but
Yes.
he still usually comes through. So,
Lord willing.
all right. The first one, why would God kill Moses for not circumcising his son in Exodus 4:24 to 26?
Oh, okay. Well, the threat is there. He doesn't actually kill Moses.
Yeah.
But the threat is there, and it's what's the amazing piece of that story is his wife, though she's not of Jewish background, gets it. She gets it and takes care of it. Is that Deuteronomy or
Exodus 4, I think. Yeah. 24.
Oh yeah,
26. It's a very short section
it is.
in Moses's return to Egypt, and
Yeah,
some of you might have even just read right over it without even noticing it.
and it is easy to read right over. Yeah. And Ziphrah takes 25. Ziphrah took the flint knife and cut the foreskin. Yeah. So why would the Lord says to Moses, when you return to Egypt, see that you perform things before Pharaoh, all the wonders I've given you the power to do. But I will harden his heart so that he will not let my people go. Then he said to Pharaoh, this is what the Lord says, Israel is my firstborn son, and I told you, let my son go so he may worship me. But he refused to let him go. At the lodging place on the way, Lord met Moses and was about to kill him. Yeah, that's sort of like out of the blue. Yeah. But Ziphrah took a flint knife and did the circumcision. We won't go through all that. Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me, she said, so the Lord let him alone. At that time, she said, bridegroom of blood, referring to circumcision. Yeah, and it's sort of an interesting story because what happened to Moses? Did he just sort of, whoops,
Yeah.
forgot? Yeah, my sons aren't circumcised, and I forgot, and here I'm back, and I'm doing the Lord's battle and don't have my own stuff done. I mean, basically, that boils down to what's going on.
Yeah.
And somehow Ziphrah, which gives some indication that Ziphrah had at least some knowledge of what needed to be done before the Lord to be within covenant
Yeah.
with God. And so she does the circumcision that Moses somehow forgot. I think in the bottom behind this story is saying, okay, before we go out as Christians to proclaim gospel to people, we need to have our homework done. We need to make sure our lives reflect who Jesus is. Just like Moses before Pharaoh needed to have his house in order before he came, on behalf of the covenant with God before Pharaoh. That's the way I take this story.
Okay.
And it's sort of God saying, Moses, get your act together before you go before Pharaoh again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's God taking covenant very seriously.
Yeah.
That somehow Ziphrah had it in her heart that, the Lord met Moses and was about to kill him. That's pretty serious.
Mm-hmm. So it's essentially saying a lot of what the New Testament would say.
Point in the same direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice crossover there. So this reminded me of the story of Abigail and Nabal,
Mm-hmm.
because Abigail bailed Nabal out too temporarily. But
Right.
like, is there other stories of wives bailing out their
Wives
husbands,
bailing-
or like, is there
Well,
significance in that at all?
It may not be recorded in the Bible, but I know it's been happening for an awful long time. My wife has bailed me out of a lot of different things. Just, I have to give Charlene credit for teaching me administration. I mean, nobody looks at her and sees her as an administrator, but those gifts that I use in administration, many of them I learned from Charlene. So that, yeah, it may not get recorded, but I'm sure it's the backstory, just like Abigail is the backstory to Nabal. And let's see. Oh, well, we can go Deborah. Deborah basically took care of the situation. Judges chapter is at 4. And where the Philistines were coming, and she had been given the prophecy that the battle would be given to Israel if they would move ahead. And at that point, Barak would not do it without her along. If you see that in Judges 4. Yeah, it is chapter 4. Huh, imagine I was right.
We get that a lot in case you're new here.
So Barak said to her in verse 8, "If you go with me, I will go, but if you do not go with me, I will not go." "Very well," Deborah said, "I will go with you, but because of the way you're going about this," meaning hooking her in on it,
yeah,
"the honor will not be yours, for the Lord will give Sisera over to a woman." So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh, and where he was summoned. And then we know the rest of the story. Then it's actually a woman who uses a peg spike, tent spike, to kill the leader of the enemies. And so that battle was given to a woman. So yeah. There's more. There's more. That's the next one that came to my mind, was that one.
Yeah.
Of Deborah. But yeah, the women play a mighty good, solid part of God's story.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that there isn't, I mean, there's not, like, women aren't recorded near as much as the men in the Bible, but when they are, it's extremely important stuff.
It really is, yeah. And we see that even in the New Testament, Aquila and Priscilla and their work with Apollos. That was very important work they did there. Yeah. Part of it is probably jaded by the fact it's written by men, patriarchal for the most part. The other part is that men aren't supposed to lead. What's interesting is we often don't take that leadership seriously. And that's, yeah. And it's not lead and being led. It's much closer. In fact, Jesus would actually reverse it, because he said he who would be first should be last, and last first. And then in John 13, he washes his disciples' feet. The guys who should be stepping up and serving him, he ends up serving.
Yeah.
And so while we like to see things much more polarized than it is, it's not that polarized in the New Testament writing, that men are to do it all. We don't know. That's not, no. No, that doesn't wash. Yeah, I just thought of another spot. Ruth. The book of Ruth is given to us because of what God did with those women. And Ruth, actually, even though she was a Moabite, was the grandmother of David. That's God playing out.
Not sure I knew that.
Playing out the story time after time through the people, unlikely people, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, a Moabite grandma to David.
Yeah.
Grandma, great grandma. It's right in there within a couple generations. So
Right.
yeah, it's a good story. Good, hey, good stuff.
Yeah.
What you got next?
Well, I wasn't sure what I was going to bring next, but when you mentioned the Moabites, and
Oh,
I think
okay.
we'll go over to Sodom and Gomorrah here.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
So, I mean, this is just an extremely questioned passage, and a lot of, I mean, non-believers are making YouTube videos of this, of like how Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, and
specific
stuff
Sodom
like
and
that.
Gomorrah.
And
okay.
yeah, I mean, you can find plenty of videos on them,
Mhm.
and all of their different takes on it. Trying to see here, I don't actually have the passage written down, but
I was wondering.
do you
I
have it? Or?
think it is 20. Is it 20?
Oh, it might be 19.
19. There we go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, which is the part that they have the biggest problem with? The prayer beforehand, with the 3 visitors coming to Abraham prior. I mean, there's a
maybe.
precursor to it.
I don't know what.
Yeah. Well, what I find interesting is when we go to chapter 18 of Genesis, we see the 3 visitors coming, and Abraham has a soft spot for Sodom, and I think you could take that a lot of different ways, that he just had a heart for people. They actually had been his adversaries at different times, but his nephew was living there. And so part of it is familial. He's pleading for his nephew's life among the visitors because they're headed that direction. Because in verse 20 says, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great that their sin so grievous that I will go down and see if they have done as bad an outcry as has reached to me. If not, I will know. The men turned away and went toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him, meaning the Lord. This is interesting. Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? because the devastation that was planned was total wipeout. What if there's 50 righteous people in the city? Will you sweep away and not spare the place for the sake of 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you, because it's talking about the nature of God. Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? And so the Lord says, if I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I'll spare the whole place for their sake. That's talking about God's heart.
Yeah.
And so then Abraham spoke up again, brave soul that he is. Okay, went 2 pages. Now that I've been so bold to speak to you, though I'm nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city because of 5 people? If I find 45 there, says God, I will not destroy it. So once again, he spoke to him. What if there are only 40 found there? And that would probably be about the size of Lot's family and his servants altogether. He said, for the sake of 40, I will not do it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry. Let me speak. What if there's only 30 that can be found there? Will you? And the Lord answers, I won't do it if I find 30 there. Now that I've been so bold to speak, now he goes down to 20. And God says, for the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. And then he goes down to 10. For the sake of 10, God will not destroy it. The Lord had finished speaking. Abram left him, and Abraham returned home. What we find then, the 2 angels go into the city, and they find it in a bad way. A bad way.
Yeah.
To the point that even the angels are about to be victimized if Lot hadn't opened his doors and brought them in. That speaks a great deal about the city.
Yeah.
And their intent, their culture, what they've said is all right among them, and they go for it. They try. Lot even offers his daughters in place of the two visitors. And that might sound bad. And, no, it does sound bad. There's no way that doesn't sound bad. But he was trying to be hospitable. It was a reflection of his hospitality.
Okay.
He wanted to care for the visitors. Not that he would openly sacrifice his daughters. Because of this, they are saved and are led out of the city before it's destroyed.
Yeah.
And then Lot's wife, of course, turns around and anything you're leaving, you're going to have some wonder. And hearing what was going on, then she turned her head back and turned to salt. So, what's the next question?
Well, it was that one right there. Yeah. You brought it up because it again is the wife in the Bible with another important part there. Yeah, and it's like the movie explosion scenes you see now. You know, it's not cool if you look back, and
not cool if you look.
She looked back,
and she looked.
So.
Back.
And there's significance of that.
There's significance to that because, it is our human tendency to do so. Whether it's looking back because something's happening behind us and it's distracting. If we're told not to look back, isn't that little voice in the back of our head? Well, why? Couldn't I just maybe? And when it's actually an angel of God that says, "Don't look back," maybe. You shouldn't look back,
listen,
When the angels show up, you probably ought to listen to them. And so this is judgment. In a sense, it's lesser punishment than what was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
It's still punishment. But part of it is the sovereignty of God. I mean, how much do we believe that God is not only a righteous judge, but sovereign judge? And what he says he will do, he's let us know that ahead of time. That being said, it brings all the more importance to what Jesus did on the cross, because all of us were under the sin of the judgment of the law. All of us. And the cross is the place where grace came and freed us from the judgment of the law at the cross. Now we're under Christ, and then we're in relationship rather than religion. That's the difference. Yeah. I sort of went a little ways past your question there, but
no, that's good.
It's significant to think that God is decisive. I mean, he was even decisive when Abraham said, "Okay, is there 50 and 45, 30, on down." Yeah. And God knew there weren't more than Lot's family that were righteous enough to come out of the city. But he was still going to judge that city. Yeah. Those cities.
Another part with this is get into the Moab part, the Moabites, like we talked about earlier. Like, what about the cave scene, I guess you could call it? Like,
you're getting into that part. Yes. Yeah. Okay. And that's how we ended up with Moabites, folks. Yeah.
What do we take that for?
Well, a lot. The two daughters hatched this plan to get, okay, there's no men around there. How are we going to continue the family line and all these things that they were worried about? And we can get ourselves. It's not like there were no other men on earth, right?
Yeah.
But in their minds, for that moment, there were no other men on earth. It wasn't reality, but it was where they had gone with their minds. And so they cook up this plan.
31, 32.
Yeah. Let's get our father drunk and then lie with him and preserve our family line through our father. And so poor old Lot gets drunk and has sex with his daughters, and they start a whole new nation. Isn't that wonderful? And the question is, should they have done that? No, they shouldn't have done that. But that's, a lot of histories because people did what they thought they had to do
Yeah.
to get by. And in their minds, this is how they could keep the family line from being contaminated, if you will, from outsiders. Was it good? Was it right? No. And in a way, it crafted a nation that was on the edge of culture because of how it started. Yeah. No, I would not condone that today. I don't think that's the way we need to do things. And actually, there are other men around. There would have been other men around at that time. But this is how they had reasoned things out. And maybe that's the lesson that we can take from it as much as anything else. Sometimes we get into a spot where we reason things out because of our hopelessness. And okay, something that probably sin. No, this was sin. It was sin, and they knew it was sin. And I don't know of a culture it's all right, but they justified it.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I don't know whether you get in those situations where this is a little seamy, but I can justify it.
Yep.
And then we move forth, and and that's not always good. So be careful how we justify things.
Yep. We as humans can find a way to justify anything, so
we're quite good at it.
Yep.
Yeah. But that also puts us in a spot where we may not reflect Christ well.
Yeah.
Because what he said and what we're doing contrast.
Yeah. All right.
Cool. Well, I didn't put the timer out, and we might be about time.
I think that's it for today.
Okay.
Thank you as always for answering the questions, Don. If you guys ever have questions, you can let us know. Put them in the comments.
Alex will pull them out.
Like that. Yeah. Just get them to us somehow. If you know either of us, you can just reach out to us.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, don't give them to me. Otherwise, I'll have it up.
Oh, yeah.
Give them to Rowan, and then he'll take care of them and get them in the right spot.
Yep.
Because I don't want to know them ahead of time, or it spoils things a little
Forgot
bit.
about that part.
We'll try a couple episodes here in the future where we actually know and can research the question ahead of time.
Yeah.
I think that might be fun too.
Deeper dive there. But thank you guys all for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Lord willing.
Thank you for joining us for this podcast. Feel free to become part of this ministry by sharing it with others. Our goal is to help each other grow deeper in our understanding of who God is and His calling to us in our daily lives. Thank you again for joining us, and may God bless your day.